Hi, Reading Adam here with you again. It's early in the morning for me, but I wanted to talk about this book. I don't know how that shows up, but Crucial Conversations. Crucial Conversations. I had seen this pop up on Amazon suggested books a while ago, and finally, I saw it at my library, and I just picked it up because sometimes that happens where you've heard of a book and you're like, oh, I want to read that, but it's not something you're buying on your Kindle right away. It's not something you're purchasing and you need to read it now. Um, it's just something that is you file it away and you're like, oh, that would be interesting to read sometime. I wonder what's in that. I wonder if it'd benefit me, and then you find it like in a library. Like that's how it was with Anti-Fragile. I knew about Anti-Fragile for years. And I didn't want to spend the money on it. I even saw it for $10 at a bookstore, but I don't know. I have trouble purchasing any book for over like $3. But and that's just me. It's stupid, but that's just me. Anyways, you see a book that you've had in the back of your mind, and then you go and pick it up. This will happen to you a lot. So a lot of times I'll look at book suggestions and stuff and just file things away. And then if I ever come across them in the future, then I go ahead and check it out. So this book here, I'm going through the notes in the back of it because, and I'm going to write some of this stuff down for myself as notes later on because it is worth remembering. I just finished this book the other day, and there is a lot of interesting material that I think would be beneficial. You try to remember a few things, a few concepts, so whenever a crucial conversation comes up, then you'll be able to implement these techniques. So what is a crucial conversation? A crucial conversation is when you're talking to somebody and the stakes are high. So maybe a relationship's in trouble, or maybe a customer is very upset about something. Maybe you're in a meeting, and if you don't speak up, bad things are going to happen. So that's kind of what, just a few brief examples, but basically there's a situation, and you need to be able to recognize this in yourself and in others, where if you're starting to talk about something that's pretty heavy, do they get silent or violent? So remember that. Do they get silent or violent? So do they clam up? Do they go quiet on you? Do you then feel like you can't talk to them? Or do they get angry and burst out to you and potentially there's a potential for violence there because of what you're talking about? So that's something that you need to look out for with the person you're talking to, and also in yourself, how you're responding. So if you feel like you're responding that way, like if you're getting defensive or whatever, or you're talking to somebody and they're getting defensive, principle number one is start with heart. So that means focus on what you really want. What do you really want for yourself, for others, for the relationship? And with this, they say refuse the sucker's choice. So what is the sucker's choice? What do I not want? How should I go about getting what I really want and avoiding what I don't want? So the sucker's choice is kind of like you feel like if you speak up, they're going to get angry at you, and then the relationship's going to go poorly. But you also feel like if you don't speak up, you're going to resent the other person. The relationship's going to go poorly. Anyway, it's kind of like you develop into a catch-22 situation where you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. That's the sucker's choice. So refuse the sucker's choice. Instead, sorry, the lighting is a bit poor here. I apologize for that. I'm going to try to move a bit closer. So the sucker's choice is something that you avoid by asking yourself, what do you really want out of this conversation? So if somebody's done something bad to you, and you want to talk about it, and you ask for yourself, what do I really want? I really want to have a good relationship with this person. So I'm willing to talk about this to them. in order to move past this and possibly grow from it. Because maybe I'm missing something here, and maybe there's something that needs to be discussed. Learn to look. Learn to look. That's principle number 2. Look for when the conversation becomes crucial. Am I going to silence or violence our others? So again, I discussed that already, so I kind of skipped ahead of myself. But they say look for safety problems. So this is principle number 3. Make it safe. And this was an interesting chapter in the book. And it's a very quick read. It's only like 200 pages. So why is safety at risk? What is safety? So safety is making the conversation safe to continue. So somebody, say they're getting silent or they're getting violent, you want to establish a mutual purpose. So they give a lot of examples in this book. Like one example is, say somebody wants to talk about their intimate life with their intimacy with their significant other, and they start to bring it up, and the significant other is defensive at first. Maybe they say something hurtful. They don't want to talk about it, but so what happens is they're feeling defensive. They're not ready for this conversation. So you got to make it safe for them. So you have to establish mutual purpose through mutual respect. What do you do to rebuild safety? So they use a thing called the crib method to get to the mutual purpose. So I'm just going to look that up real quick, because crib is an acronym, if you didn't already get that. But page 73. I'm just going through because I want to make sure I have proper information for you. I don't want to I just don't want to make everything up as we go here, because this is a much more interesting and helpful chapter. Where are you, crib method? Where you at, crib method? Not seeing you. Okay, here we go. Creating a mutual purpose. C. Commit to seek mutual purpose. In this case, you have to agree to agree. To be successful, we have to stop using silence or violence to compel others to our view. We must even surrender false dialogue, where we pretend to have mutual purpose, basically calmly arguing your side until you drive a home, till the other person gives in. How many times do people do that, right? This can be tough. To stop arguing, we have to suspend our belief that our choice is the absolute best and only one, and that we'll never be happy until we get exactly what we currently want. So the next time you find yourself stuck in a battle of wills, try this amazingly powerful but simple skill. Step out of the content of the struggle and make it safe. Simply say, it seems like we're both trying to force our view on each other. I commit to stay in this discussion until we have a solution that satisfies both of us. That's the C part. You're just reestablishing the purpose of the conversation. You don't want to argue with them. You want to find a solution that's satisfactory to both parties. Recognize R. So for crib, C was commit to seek mutual purpose. R is the next step. Recognize the purpose behind the strategy. Wanting to come up with a shared goal is a wonderful first step, but desire alone is not enough. After we've experienced a change of heart, we need to change our strategy as well. So here's a problem we have to fix when we find ourselves at an impasse. It's because we're asking for one thing, the other person is asking for something else. Has that ever happened to you? Obviously not, right? We think we'll never find a way out because we equate what we're asking for with what we actually want. In truth, what we're asking for is the strategy we're suggesting to get what we want. We confuse wants or purpose with strategies. That's a problem. For example, I come home from work and say that I want to go to a movie. You say you want to stay home and relax. Oh, this is a neat example to kind of show. And this, obviously this never happens to couples, right? Somebody wants to go out, somebody wants to stay in. We figure we'll never be able to resolve our differences because going out and staying home are incompatible. In such circumstances, we can break the impasse by asking others, why do you want that? Why do you want to stay home? Because I'm tired. Answer. Because I'm tired of running around and dealing with the hassle of the city. So you want peace and quiet? Mostly. And why do you want to go to a movie? Answer. So I can spend some time with you away from the kids. So here we go. So you're releasing your grip on your strategy and focusing on the real purpose, which is you're open to the idea of finding an alternative that'll work for both of you. So you want peace and quiet, and I want time with you away from the kids. So if we can come up with something that's quiet and away, we'll both be happy. Is that right? Absolutely. So what if we blah, 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 blah. Okay. Invent a mutual purpose. This is I and Crib. Invent a mutual purpose. So if you can't yet find a purpose, mutual purpose, invent one. So sometimes you'll find you have compatible goals, but you're not always so lucky. So in the previous example there was a compatible goal. So sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes you cannot discover a mutual purpose. This means you'll have to invent one. To invent a mutual purpose, move to more encompassing goals. Find an objective that is more meaningful or more rewarding than the ones that divide the various sides. For instance, you and your spouse may not agree on whether or not you should take the promotion, but you can agree that the needs of your relationship and the children come before career aspirations. By focusing on higher and longer-term goals, you often find ways to transcend short-term compromises, build mutual purpose, and return to dialogue. Excuse me. So, I mean, that's just one quick example, but you have to, so you're trying to build safety in a conversation. It's becoming a crucial conversation. It could go south. You're trying to establish safety, meaning that you're asking yourself, what's the true goal of this conversation? What do I really want out of this? I want to have a good relationship with this person. So what you're trying to do is figure out how to do that. So you have to find a mutual purpose, something that you agree on with the other person. And if you can't find something, you have to invent something. You have to think of a longer-term goal. You have to figure out, you have to use your imagination to figure out what is it that you really want. What's the ultimate purpose of this? B for Crib, brainstorm new strategies. Once you've built safety by finding a shared purpose, you should now have enough safety to return to the content of the conversation. Time to step back into the dialogue. Dialogue is a mutual exchange of information. And brainstorm strategies that meet everyone's needs. If you've committed to finding something everyone can support and surface what you really want, you'll no longer be spending your energy on unproductive conflict. Instead, you'll be actively coming up with options that can serve everyone. So, I mean, you'll have to read the book. I just wanted to gloss over that quickly so I didn't give you incorrect information. But they do give good examples of back and forth conversations. They have a conversation between Yvonne and Jotham, who are talking about their own intimate relationship and what they have. So let me give you an example here. So how Yvonne creates safety in the conversation. So here's Yvonne. First, she'll use contrasting to prevent misunderstanding of her purpose. Yvonne, Jotham, I'd like to talk about our physical relationship. I'm not doing it to put you on the spot or to suggest the problem is yours. I'm completely clear that it's as much my problem as yours. I'd really like to talk about it so we can make things better for both of us. Now here's Jotham's response, which is totally realistic. What's there to talk about? You don't want it. I want it. I'll try to deal with it. Then Yvonne responds, so obviously Jotham's got his back up on the wall, right? I think it's more complicated than that. The way you act sometimes makes me want to be with you even less. Jotham, if that's how you feel, why are we pretending to have a relationship at all? So, first she used contrasting, but then she didn't keep the conversations safe. She focused on what she wants, but the way she responded made Jotham feel at fault. The way Yvonne made her point sounded to him like she was blaming him for everything. He believes her concern in one small area reflects her total feelings toward him. So she's going to create safety now. She's going to apologize and use contrasting to rebuild safety so they can actually talk about this. I'm sorry I said it that way. I'm not blaming you for how I act or feel. That's my problem. I don't see this as your problem. I see it as our problem. Both of us may be acting in ways that make things worse. I know I am, at least. Right? So, Jotham, I probably am too. Sometimes I pout because I'm hurting, and I also do it hoping it'll make you feel bad. I'm sorry about that too. So, Yvonne kept the conversation safe. She focused on what she really wants out of the conversation, which is a better relationship with Jotham to figure out this intimacy problem they have. This is far more effective, that apologizing and taking a step back, that's much more effective than if Yvonne had just gone into blaming Jotham. So Jotham again. I just don't see how we can work this out. I'm wired for more passion than you are. It seems like the only solution is for me to put up with it the way it is or for you to feel like a sex slave. So now the problem is one of mutual purpose. Jotham thinks that he and Yvonne are at cross purposes. In his mind, there is no possibility of a mutually satisfactory solution. Rather than move to compromise or fight for her way, Yvonne's going to step out of the issue and crib to get mutual purpose. Yvonne, no, that isn't what I want at all. I don't want anything with you that isn't great for both of us. I just want to find a way to have us both feel close, appreciated, and loved. Jotham, that's what I want too. It just seems like we get those feelings in different ways. So they have in parentheses here, notice how Jotham is leaving the game behind and joining the dialogue. Safety is making this possible. Specifically, they have a mutual purpose now that he's actually talking with her about. Yvonne, now recognizing the purpose behind the strategy. Excuse me very much. Maybe not. What makes you feel loved and appreciated? Jotham, making love with you when you really want to makes me feel loved and appreciated. And you? Yvonne, when you do thoughtful things for me, and I guess when you hold me, but not always sexually. Jotham, you mean if we're just cuddling that makes you feel loved? Yvonne, yes, and sometimes I guess when I think you're doing it because you love me, sex does that for me too. Jotham, inventing a mutual purpose. So we need to find ways to be together that make both of us feel loved and appreciated. Is that what we're looking for here? Yvonne, yes, I really want that too. Now Jotham, brainstorm in parentheses here, brainstorm new strategies. Well, what if we, and then just, you make it up after that. So it's that's just I thought that was a decent example because it's a fairly common thing. It's almost like those two are in therapy with each other. Like that's what a therapist kind of helps do. They help create safety in conversation, right? So if you're in a marriage counseling session, the purpose is to gain dialogue, to have a mutually constructive conversation with your spouse about things that are bothering you and you'd like to improve on in the relationship. But you can't really have a good conversation if you start bringing stuff up and the other person gets really defensive. The counselor acts as somebody who creates safety in that conversation. So I thought safety was very interesting because it's something that a lot of us do without even thinking that that's what we're trying to establish, safety in order to continue a productive conversation, especially if you notice somebody's getting silent or violent. So this book it's helpful in pointing out that no, that's an actual real skill and strategy. And I've worked in call centers for a great deal, a lot longer than I wish or care to mention, but that was something that I instinctively did the better I got at my call center work. So you get somebody on the phone, they're upset, something's obviously not going right, they wouldn't be calling you, and so you got to figure it out. Now, you have no bone in the fight, so you're not defensive. You're not going to take anything personally because, hey, that's your job. You're getting paid to do this. So you develop a little bit of a thick skin. Some people can't do that, but you develop, assume you have thick skin. Whatever they say doesn't affect you. So they're just, you try to talk them through what's going on. So if they're getting upset or if they're getting angry, you just continually are trying to create a mutual purpose. You're trying to figure out, well, I'm here to help. Let's start off with this. What's bothering you? What's going on with this? You're just continually trying to create safety. So back when I worked tech support, somebody call in that they felt like they lost all their information on their phone, right? Some situation like that. Let's say that they lost all their contacts. Their phone factory reset, they lost all their contacts. Let's say this is a hopeful situation where they do have a lot of their contacts already backed up to their Gmail or something. So I'd be like, you know what, this happens to a lot of folks, but there are ways we can ensure that there's a way we can fix this for you. I'm going to work with you through every step of the process and try to restore these contacts for you. And I try to find out, is there a previous device that might have your contacts on it? Okay, no? Oh, all right. So have you ever used a computer with a device? I do some digging to find out and just stick to the purpose, which is to solve their immediate problem, and completely ignore their emotions at the time, because I know that my purpose is to ensure that this is a happy customer, right? And they're going to be a happy customer not if I solve the problem. I mean, that's a bonus, because this is a sticky situation. Most likely those contacts are gone for good. So my purpose is I want this customer to be a happy customer. How am I going to do that? Well, if I can't even get their contacts back, I'm going to at least show them that we're going to do everything possible to try. So I don't know. That's just something that I used to do a lot. Is even if I knew ahead of time this probably isn't going to end well, I'm going to at least show them that I did everything in my power to try to help them, and that usually made people calm down by the end. By the end, they're like, you know what, we did all we could. Now I gotta deal with the fact that this happened, and I gotta move forward from here. So principle number 4, moving on. Master my stories. So what does that mean? So I thought this was very interesting. Mastering your stories, basically the narrative or the stories you tell yourself. So recognizing why somebody becomes violent or silent, even if particularly you're not having a conversation with them. So they give an example of a guy he's in a meeting with his coworker, and his coworker starts developing a narrative in her head about what he thinks of her and so forth. And he hasn't even talked to her. He's just giving instruction on the meeting, and she's building up in her mind all this stuff outside of that meeting without having any direct talk. So whatever happens in our life, there are some facts that come from that happening, and then we as humans just weave a story around those facts. That's just what we do. So that whatever that story is that we tell ourselves, that creates how we feel, that creates our emotions, and then our emotions are what create our drive to act in some way, which could be, I'm going to act like so one thing they say is like, if somebody's taking cheap shots at you, or somebody's being sarcastic or something like that, most likely they've told themselves a narrative already that is not in line, that's not in alignment with the facts, and they haven't had constructive dialogue with you. So I thought that was quite interesting. And be careful of this yourself. Like, you know how people they can overthink things. I know that's probably never happened to you, but sometimes you overthink things. Sometimes you build a story in your mind that's in anticipation of the future, or a story of what happened in the past. And in your retelling of this, you're trying to make sense of it, but you don't have all the facts, and you make a lot of stuff up, and it causes certain feelings. You see this happen probably. Let's use an example where everybody can relate. You have a coworker who kind of they can't they're thin-skinned, they can't take much, and they get upset at people easily, quickly. I had a coworker like this who, she was a little bit messed up in the head, or is that just narrative I'm telling myself? No, she was messed up in the head. Anyways, she thought somebody said something bad about her. Somebody said something to her like, "Oh, so-and-so said this about you." And she would immediately fly off the handle and charge over to that person, ready to whoop their ass. And I'm just shaking my head like you have no idea what just happened. You have no idea what that person said. You're so easily manipulated by this other person telling you so-and-so said this, because they already know you kind of don't like that person, because you built a narrative in your head already that person doesn't like you, and so forth, so on. It's just ridiculous. And so if you've known anybody like that, it's because they pre-installed a narrative in their head. They're extra paranoid. They're looking out for other people. Does this person like me? Do they hate me? Because they're hyper defensive. Maybe their lifestyle, maybe the way they were raised, maybe the way they're, the things that have happened to them growing up has made them like that. Whereas somebody else who's very easygoing, you can tell they don't construct narratives in their head. They don't blow things out of proportion. They don't react on impulses, because a lot of that, because they probably tell themselves different stories. Like, oh, I don't know, maybe they said, but it probably didn't mean me, or they didn't really mean it, or I'm not going to worry about that because I don't care about them anyway. So I don't know. It's just the narratives you tell yourself. Be aware of the fact that you do tell yourself narratives. So how do you open, if you've told yourself a narrative, or somebody else told themselves a narrative, how do you deal with that? So first, you share your facts. What are the actual facts? And then you tell your story to that person. You're trying to open up. Am I talking about the real issue? And you're also asking yourself, am I really open to others' views? So you're asking for the other's paths. You're talking tentatively, encourage testing. You're just trying to open up. You're just trying to say, like, hey, this is, I kind of noticed that, you kind of brushed, you turned away from me when I was trying to discuss something with you when I was with a customer. And that made me feel like you were brushing me off. That made me feel a bit upset. I'm just wondering if I got that right. Like, did I just misunderstand something? I just want to understand if it's so that I don't have feelings of resentment or anything. I don't want to feel like I got this all wrong. So I'm just bringing this to you and just asking, what kind of, I just want to know what happened there so that we can move past this. Right? That's kind of just a quick example. So there is a few other things. That's it for just that. So I found this book, Crucial Conversations. It is well worth reading, even if you watch this video. Part of the reason why I did this video is not to get people to read the book necessarily, or to give cliff notes of the book, although I guess it could serve as that, but to remind myself of the information from this book, because chances are in your life you're going to have conversations with coworkers, bosses, spouses, family members, that there's a lot at stake in the conversation. And if you at least have a few strategies that you're aware of, maybe you'll be able to do something with that conversation. There's an important, sorry, my words are a little messed up in the morning, but there was an important addendum or appendix at the end of the book where some of the authors were talking about, you know what, sometimes this stuff, we know this stuff by heart. We've been studying for 20 years how real excellent communicators, how they do this. And, you know what, we know this stuff by heart, but sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you slip up. Sometimes you become immediately defensive. And you got to become aware of that. So like, you're not going to be perfect after reading this book, but sometimes they say, you know what, sometimes it takes time. So one guy was talking about how, you know, he knew there was a problem with his teenage daughter. Her personality, like her actions completely changed, and he knew something was up. And he tried to have a conversation with her to find out what's wrong. And he said it must have taken like 10 different attempts to have a conversation with her before she finally opened up to him. So it's not like this is a magic bullet where the very first time you attempt it, it's going to work. Or it's going to work every time. But maybe it will work over time eventually. All he did is he tried to have her open up. He just repeatedly demonstrated to her, you know, he was creating as much safety as possible, talking to her, you know, not giving her consequence, not getting upset with her, but just being like, you know, hey, when you're ready to talk about this, I'm here. I really want to find out what's, you know, if there's any way I can help you. And I notice these things are going. I notice you're acting different in these ways, and I'm concerned about that as your parent. So I want to know what's going on, and maybe there's a way I can help you because I'm concerned for you. And then just continually doing that, because maybe they're not ready to talk about it. You know, some people they have stronger emotions than others. Some people they're ready to talk about it. Some people they're not ready to talk about it. Maybe you need to talk to them about it after they've had a good meal, and they're in a completely different state of mind. As opposed to like they're grumpy. It's the very first thing in the morning. Like a lot of times, you know, sometimes my wife will try to have an important, crucial conversation with me, but it's the morning. Like I just woke up. I'm not awake. I haven't eaten. I haven't had my coffee. I'm feeling, you know, as you do in the early morning. I feel like, don't talk to me, stay away, I'm still waking up. And sometimes I'll do the same thing. I'll wake up ahead of her, and I'll be full of energy. I'll have gone through my morning routine. I'll be full of energy. I'll be full of ready for conversation. I'll try to talk to her, and she's not ready to talk. So, you know, recognize a good time to actually have those conversations with somebody. If you're at work, it's usually a good time because, hey, you're at work. But outside of work, you know, people have different energy states, different states of mind and well-being outside of work. Did they just come back from the gym? Are they exhausted? Is it the morning? Have they eaten? Are they ready for bed? Are they really into doing something else right at that moment? You know, sometimes you have to break in because the conversation is so crucial that, you know, you can't wait. But it's just try to be aware of that stuff, and you're going to have better conversations with folks. So anyways, well worth the reading. Crucial Conversations is the book. I won't give you there's like multiple authors, and it just showed their last name on the book title. So just if you look up Crucial Conversations, that's good enough. And check out your library, check out your bookstore. It's well worth the read. It might make a difference in your life. And you know what? A lot of books, that's what you want out of a book. You want it to make some small difference in your life. And I feel like this kind of book is a true self-improvement book, because if you at least adhere to some of these principles some of the time, it's going to make a difference in your life. So anyways, that's all I got for you today. Enjoy the rest of your day. This is Reading Adam signing off. Thanks. Bye.